All right, man, peace. GQ magazine decided that they were going to grant embattled former San Francisco 49er quarterback Colin Kaepernick with their Citizen of the Year award. Of course, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
Welcome back. Eric Davis here, now joined by a founder of the big league, Jason McIntyre. Let's move to Colin Kaepernick, who may be out of a job, but is hardly out of the spotlight. Gracing the cover of GQ this week with the magazine naming the activist quarterback as...
Now, if you notice, in the previous photo that they showed, GQ is clearly trying to conjure up an image or an association of Colin Kaepernick with Huey P. Newton. As I've stated numerous times in previous videos, it's amazing to me how this guy has gone from trying to bang every chick in the entertainment industry to all of a sudden he's some form of revolutionary leader, some form of Marxist revolutionary leader. And when you see the pose that he's doing right there, the right hand fist in the air, that is for discordianism. That's for chaos. A lot of so-called pro-blacks who utilize that sign don't really understand where that comes from. As a matter of fact, it goes back to Hermetic principles. If you ever see any of the statuettes from the ancient world depicting the god Baal, or even Osiris, or Asar as he's called, he's often depicted striding with his right fist in the air and his left hand down, for the as above, so below Hermetic principles.
As Citizen of the Year. Cover story is titled Colin Kaepernick will not be silenced, but he still doesn't actually say anything. Instead,
he doesn't say anything because he has nothing to say. He allows his clothes and the liberal media and the liberal sports media to speak for him. Once again, he is a pawn. His job was to create discord and to bring about the destruction of the NFL. That is why he's had the liberal media behind him for the longest time. As I've been telling you guys incessantly, they want to recalibrate. They want to socially engineer the NFL. And after turning the NFL into a woke league, they want to use the NFL to socially engineer society. That's what Colin Kaepernick's role has always been. He's been basically a cherry bomb, a Trojan horse that was snuck into the NFL. And he's being utilized by his handler, Ness Nitty.
Instead, letting several admirers like Harry Belafonte, J. Cole speak on his behalf. Look,
let me say this very quickly. And I've mentioned this notion before in regards to Colin Kaepernick, J. Cole, and so-called Negroes like them. They're dealing with a lot of racial identity issues due to the fact that they have Caucasian parentage or partial Caucasian parentage. They feel the need to try to out-nigger a lot of so-called blacks, particularly darker blacks. And you see this a lot particularly amongst very light-skinned so-called black people. That's why you'll notice oftentimes at the forefront of many of these black liberation philosophies, you will see a very, very light-skinned so-called black man, whether it's W.E.B. Du Bois, whether it's Elijah Muhammad, even going back to W. Fard Muhammad, who really wasn't even a so-called black man. I don't even know what the hell he was. Supposedly, he may have been Polynesian, he may have been Caucasian, but that's another video for another day. Huey P. Newton, the list goes on and on, of extremely light-skinned so-called black men who felt the need to start a lot of liberation philosophies. Now, look, I'm not a proponent of colorism. As brothers know who deal with the scriptures, you are whatever your father is, because the man carries the seed. But there is a very, very pertinent psychological disorder that so-called black people of mixed parentage deal with, and they try to compensate for it by trying to be overtly, quote unquote, pro-black. And you can see that with J. Cole. J. Cole is, when you listen to his music, you can tell that the brother's talented, but he's also very confused, and he's very resentful towards his father, even though he probably will not overtly say it. He's very resentful towards his father for having a white mother. J. Cole wishes that his mother was black. All right, and you can see it. You can see it here with him growing the dirty dreadlocks. He's going through his bohemian Discordian phase where he just wants to question everything. He really has no answers. He just wants to question everything. And the beard and the scruffy dreadlocks, that's just a manifestation of really just how messy he is inside. He don't really know who he is. But he's in the path of trying to find it. He's on the path of trying to find it. You see the same thing with Kaepernick with the big bushy afro and the beard. They're really just trying to rebel against the conventional image, the so-called clean-cut image. They feel like being scruffy like that makes them more quote-unquote black.
Like you okay with Cap being...
Now this photo right here, this clearly was an attempt by GQ to subconsciously associate Kaepernick with Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali took a very, very similar photo while he was in Zaire training for George Foreman with the dashiki on. And please pay very close attention to the photo. Around Colin Kaepernick, what do you see? All you see are black and brown, quote unquote, black and brown children and black women. You don't see that there's not another grown black man in the photo until you look at the top left area and you see that brother who probably is one of Kaepernick's security guards, quite frankly, and he's about 5 rows back. But up front, there was a concerted attempt to have Kaepernick be surrounded by black and brown children and women, because this is a liberal Caucasian-led movement that they're using Kaepernick as a pawn for, and they want the leadership of the so-called black community to be black women and children. They want the so-called black man to be completely marginalized unless he's a pawn and being controlled. This is why you'll see the so-called black men in the photo all the way in the back. And if you look very, very closely, that's exactly where the so-called black man is. He's all the way in the back of the photo. All right. A lot of times you have to pay very close attention to the imagery that is pushed and propagated, because they tell you a lot through the photos. All right. That's why they say a picture speaks 1,000 words.
Named Citizen of the Year by GQ. You dress well. You like that magazine?
I think it's...
Oh, please. Whitlock don't dress well. Whitlock dresses at the Big and Short store.
It's an embarrassment. I think it's... The guy won't speak, and they keep comparing him to Muhammad Ali.
Exactly. I've been saying for the longest time that they've been trying to align him with Muhammad Ali. There's a reason for that. Because they're frustrated at the fact that they couldn't control Ali back 50 years ago, because Ali was a pawn of the Nation of Islam. So now they have a new chance to control black liberal beliefs through athletes like Colin Kaepernick and LeBron James, Steph Curry, so on and so forth. So now they've taken advantage of that by trying to appeal to the conscience and to the conscience of the so-called black community by aligning Kaepernick with heroic figures like Ali. All right, it's purposeful. When you see Colin Kaepernick, think Muhammad Ali. Why? Because they know the feelings that Muhammad Ali conjures up in most people in the so-called black community.
There's a picture now floating around social media of Kaepernick's photo from GQ magazine comparing it to Muhammad Ali. Throw the picture up.
I'm pretty sure that that's not the picture that Whitlock is talking about. I'm pretty sure that the photo that he's talking about is the one of Kaepernick in the dashiki, surrounded by the children. The one that I was just evaluating for you guys. I'm pretty sure that that's what he was referring to.
He's not Muhammad Ali. I'm sorry. As much as a segment of the media wants to make him Muhammad Ali, this is a joke. He posed for a bunch of pictures, but wouldn't talk for the interview. He won't explain whatever his movement is.
Because he has no movement, Whitlock, and it's not his job to talk for the interview. It's his job to be used. He's like a model. Right? When you hire a model's job is to sell your product. A model's job is not to speak. Colin Kaepernick is a pawn. Once again, in my honest opinion, he's a monarch athlete. In my honest opinion, his handler is Ness Nitty. Right, a lot of people might not be able to accept that level of the evaluation of Colin Kaepernick, but that's what I see. I have little doubt about that. But in regards to Kaepernick, just from a surface perspective, he clearly is being used. Even if you don't want to go on the mind control angle, he's clearly being used because he's not speaking. But right now, he's starting to come back out to the forefront. Why is that? Because this little photo shoot that's being pushed by GQ is part of the oncoming campaign by Kaepernick to sell his book.
Other than the promotion of Colin Kaepernick, GQ should be embarrassed. I know they got...
And if you pay very close attention, when you look at the emblem of GQ, the G has a red inline set there, or has a red line inside of the G, and it has a blue line inside of the Q. And for those of you who understand the Hermetic philosophy or the Hermetic principles, they always place or plant the red color against the blue color. Okay? This is why, like, for example, if you watch boxing, you have the red corner and the blue corner. You have in politics, you have the red states and the blue states. Okay? You have the blue level of masonry and you have the red level of masonry.
They got to sell magazines and they got to try to be controversial and polarizing. But this is embarrassing.
Okay, so let me ask you. You guys would know this more than me. How's the magazine industry doing?
Terrible.
Not well. Okay, so that's established.
Yeah, nobody reads magazines anymore, Colin. Everybody just goes on their phone.
So let me ask you. Here are their people of the year. Which way's Stephen Colbert lean?
Left.
Kaepernick.
Left.
Durant.
Don't know.
Left.
Probably.
Durant doesn't even lean left. He's too stupid to lean one way or the other. He leans mama. All right. Whichever way his mama leans is the way he leans. That's why I purposefully highlighted Durant in that video that I did on Jemele Hill, one of the first ones I did on her. I believe it was in the video, the first two videos that I did about the Jemele Hill and Donald Trump situation, where I showed Kevin Durant coming out the club and he was drunk out of his mind and he was talking about, I'm with Jemele. He's too stupid to understand what the hell's going on. He just leans whichever way his mama leans. He's the average, two-dimensional, low-level thinking mama's boy in the so-called black community. But yeah, if you want to officially state which way he leans, is left.
Probably left.
He's in with Silicon Valley. Yeah. Gal Gadot, Wonder Woman of the Year.
Yeah, she left. Far left.
Well, you already know that she's leaning heavily left. I mean, come on. She's a so-called white Israeli woman. Caucasian Israeli woman. She's as far left as you can go.
That's fine. So what's the magazine industry doing in America? It's talking to half the country. That's why the industry is dying. This was a political award. By the way, I'm an Obama voter. I was a Clinton voter.
Oh, that's your normal Caucasian man disclaimer. Hey, look, what I'm about to say is how I really feel. And I'm not racist because I voted for Obama. It's a shame that Colin Cowherd has to preface his statement with that, because he understands that a lot of two-dimensional thinking viewers are going to associate a Caucasian man who speaks how he really feels with being so-called racist. Now, are there a lot of Caucasians out there who are racist? Absolutely. But as a so-called black man, you really should not be concerned with the racial views of the so-called Caucasian man. You should just be concerned with the truth, because the truth is going to allow you to make appropriate evaluations for your own future. The more you're concerned with trying to perpetuate lies, the more you're going to perpetuate our current standing in this society, which is at the bottom, so-called black man. As a nation of people, our people are at the bottom, and that's because our people love lies, and they love to be lied to.
It's a Reagan voter. I consider myself a social liberal, a fiscal conservative. But this is why the magazine industry is out of business. Why Sports Illustrated, which I grew up, that was the magazine. More than my local newspaper, it's dead. Why? We have a country now that speaks to half the people. The publishing business, the newspaper industry. By the way, you want to know why the Fox News channel does okay and makes $1 billion a year? Because it's the one place conservatives feel speaks for them.
As you guys can see, finally, many of these sports talk shows are starting to evaluate this situation on the level that they should have been evaluating it from the very start, which is based on a quote-unquote political but really corporate agenda. Because let's understand something. The liberal agenda is really just a straw man. It's really just a pervert. The liberal versus conservative dichotomy is really just a good cop, bad cop dichotomy. They both want the same thing, because they're both two wings on the same bird. But the job of the liberal is like the good cop. They come in and they talk to the quote-unquote perpetrator, i.e. the black man, in a very soft way to act as if, I'm your friend. The conservative is the bad cop. He comes in and he threatens quote-unquote police brutality or harassment. So the so-called black man looks at the liberal and says, okay, let me deal with that person because that person is friendlier to me and he's more humane. Either way, they both just want information. They want the confession because they just want you to be incarcerated. Their job is to move on to the next perpetrator. Okay? But once again, the reason why they push Marxism is because Marxism is the chosen form of ideology to assist the international bankers in promoting the overall world population as debt slaves. Why is that? Because Marxism promotes deculturalization and promotes a lack of spiritual belief. It promotes a graduated income tax. It promotes the eradication of the middle class. It promotes the eradication of a real money system. These are all. It promotes over emotionality and a lack of true adroitness in evaluating situations. And this is what you see in the so-called black community. And this is why they promote people like Colin Kaepernick, people who just utilize gestures and have no end game.
That's why the liberal channels slice and dice the audience, and the conservatives go to one channel.
You see, even fairly moderate people like Colin Cowherd are starting to understand things as on the level that I've been telling you guys about, you brothers about for the longest time. All right, this has never really been about so-called black and white. This has really just been about certain ideologies that that are utilized and pushed on the so-called black community to get them to embrace a certain mentality. All right, that's all it's really about.
I mean, this to me is just a political statement. It's a political statement.
That's a great point. And Whitlock, you bring this up a lot, is speaking to social media. So they're trending all over Facebook and Twitter today. So this is a win for GQ. I want to quickly talk.
Well, I mean, that's all it's really about is trying to appeal to a lot of the lame brain, low level internet revolutionaries.
Quickly talk about Kaepernick. The transformation has been rapid. Do you guys remember when he was on the cover of GQ last time, 2013? I believe we have the image. Yeah. Shirtless, abs. There's been quite a transformation.
You see? How long have I been stating that the transformation in Kaepernick has been rather stark? Other people are noticing it.
And I'm not mocking the guy, but I do want to say something about him not speaking. In an era when everybody has a voice, whether it's on radio, television, social media.
And let me say this. In your life, we all go through different stages where we grow and we mature. We don't see life the same in the same way with the same scope. You get older and you get granted with a certain level of peripheral insight, vision. Some of us, if we're lucky or fortunate, or the Lord gives us in such a way, we're able to see life from a macrocosmic perspective. We're able to evaluate things in a very fair and balanced way. Due to that level of vision. So I'm not saying that people don't grow and change. My point is that people is not to say that it's uncommon for people to grow and change, but the level in which he has changed is just stark to me. And the manner in which he has chosen to express himself is stark, especially in concert with who he has chosen to affiliate with, that being this person, Nesnitty, who came out of nowhere, who was mostly known for presenting herself as a $2 hoe on MTV with that show Girl Code. She infiltrated the 49ers by first dating his teammate, the mentally fractured Alden Smith, just to get to him, most likely because she understood that he was under the programming and she understood how to utilize his keys.
The Instagram, Snapchat, saying nothing is actually really interesting because now there's this aura of mystery. What does he really stand for? Yeah, mystery is a perfect word.
I think that he has an aura of mystery if you're a low-level thinker, if you're somebody who's infatuated with television and someone who's infatuated with the personages on TV. I mean, look, let's be very frank. Our people en masse have very low self-esteem and they're constantly looking for attention. And whenever they see somebody who is quote-unquote famous and appears to stand up for quote-unquote black causes, they're going to gravitate towards that person, whether they understand what that person's end game is or not. I mean, hell, go back 40 years. Look at what happened with Jim Jones. There's a reason why he was able to lure so many black people out there to that death camp in Guyana, where 911 people were sacrificed. But that's another story for another day.
What's he about? He's a citizen. He's your citizen. What is that? I don't know, but we're still talking about Kaepernick. We don't know what he believes for.
When they say citizen, they really just meaning operative. Okay? When they say citizen, they really just mean operative. when you're a U.S. citizen, that means that you're just property of the Corporation of Homeland Security. That's all they're saying.
And really, him saying nothing is actually working. I can't believe I'm saying this, but in an era where everyone has a voice, him saying nothing is quite brilliant.
You're right. And
well, it's the same dynamic that you had with the Wizard of Oz. People were mesmerized by him, and by his character, until they met him and they realized that he was a bumbling, stumbling idiot.
And I'm not surprised by them doing this because he has made. I mean, he's so polarizing right now. And everyone, all the way up to the NFL. All the way up Madison Avenue, it's affecting everything, okay? What Cap initially started doing. Now, by not saying anything, the void is going to be filled. And that's what's going to happen. So what is this all about? He started a conversation and...
No, he didn't start a conversation. What he started was a lot of back and forth leading nowhere. A conversation is based on interaction between two or more people where there is an exchange of ideas and an end game is laid out. That's the point of a conversation. When people are just exchanging sounds back and forth, that's known as an argument. Now, some arguments can be more heated than others. Sometimes people don't really know when they're having an argument. They think they're having a conversation, but you're just having an argument. When the overall basis of the conversation is, this is how I feel, this is how you feel, this is how I feel about the flag, this is how you feel about the flag, you're not really getting anywhere. You're having an argument, you're not having a conversation. And so-called black people, many of them who want validation from the Caucasian so bad, they want that hug so bad, they refuse to understand that the Caucasian, for the most part, does not have to feel how you want them to feel. They don't have to like you, and they don't have to care about whether you like them or not. And that's part of having a ruling class mentality, which so-called black people do not have.
And we keep saying movement. I don't know if he necessarily tried to start a movement or if he knew he was going to start a movement. I don't think that's it. He tried to start a conversation about police brutality and his feelings towards it, and that's what he was doing.
No, he tried to start a news cycle. That's what he tried to start, because nobody was paying attention to him at first, and then he had the media, or he had somebody in his camp alert the media that he was doing what he was doing so that he could get attention, because nobody cared about Kaepernick. He was irrelevant. He was about to be benched. Okay, that's really what this is about. They needed a mechanism to make him the centerpiece in a narrative so that they could bring about discord in the NFL. Okay, and we really have to start scrutinizing Roger Goodell more and more. Is there a reason why he was so light-handed in dealing with this whole situation with the kneeling thing? As it has been revealed recently, he does have liberal leanings. Is he a plant? Who the hell knows?
This is much larger than I think he ever imagined it would be. And maybe, just maybe, he doesn't know what to say, or he doesn't want to be that leader. So by staying quiet, by not saying anything, the one thing he's not doing, he's not screwing it up. That's the one thing.
He's not throwing on Castro t-shirt.
Well, that's his job. His job is to not screw it up. His job is to listen to his handlers, to his sponsors. And I've been telling you guys that for the longest time. Ever since it was revealed that Ben Stiller was helping to finance Kaepernick, that they were involved in him getting involved in a situation out there in the Sudan, flying supplies over to the Sudan, and they were bankrolling a lot of operations through Kaepernick. Like it's just very obvious what has been going on with him.
That's
He's speaking through his t-shirts, really, right?
But see, right? And some of those things where he tried to make those statements, look how they backfire.
But again, why not? If you're not going to speak and not going to really put your name and voice to it, why not pass on the photo ops and all that? Why?
Hello, Jason Whitlock. You're normally a little bit more on point than this, bruh. The reason why he can't pass on the photo ops is because he has a book coming out. He's still trying to make money. At the end of the day, like I always tell cats, it's always about the money. People can act like it's about other things. The feeling, the emotion is always about the money. Period.
He knows when these pictures are being taken, he's being analogized to Muhammad Ali, the Louisville Lip.
And look, I'm on record as already stating, when Ali died in 2016, or when he was removed, or unplugged, whatever you want to call it. They did officially unplug him on June 3rd of 2016. You know, you brothers could do with that whatever you want. All right, June 3rd, 2016 is 639. But when Ali was removed, that galvanized a lot of the internet revolutionary black athletes, and it really helped push and propel the woke movement. I mean, in a very, very big way. And a lot of these athletes wanted to emulate what Ali allegedly stood for. If you guys remember, after Ali's passing, all of a sudden that's when you had the LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, Chris Paul, Dwayne Wade ritual at the ESPYs. Then Kaepernick jumped on board. You know, everybody just wanted to be a part of it. It was like a new fad.
The guy who never quit talking, somehow mute Muhammad Ali is this amazing citizen of the year. What is this the standard we now have in America and across the globe?
No, it's not. It is the standard for the publishing industry.
Thank you, Colin. Colin's the only one who gets it. The job of the media, and of the sports media in particular, is to promote narrative. So, and I've stated this numerous times, people don't really understand how much this society is based around narrative. It's all about forwarding a news cycle and engaging in really a perpetual thought war against the masses of the people to get them to feel and think a certain way about certain issues. That's all it's ever really been about. To try to further certain agendas, to get the people to submit in a roundabout way to becoming debt slaves and to becoming more associated and affiliated with ideologies that will make them want to give away their private status.
That's why it's
Colin, this is a glorified...
talk to one half of the country.
Which the private status has been taken away for years anyway. All right. Once they took away the money and the really, for the most part, the right to private ownership, people for the most part have just become assets now.
The country.
Isn't this a glorified press release? Here's some photos of Colin Kaepernick hanging out with a bunch of kids in Harlem. That's what he stands for. That's all
but it's also helping to continue this conversation.
Okay, but it's a conversation. J.J. Watt, Eric, raised $37 million for Hurricane Harvey relief
in Texas.
Thing. How is he not the citizen? $37 million for families displaced, lost everything. And he's not even in the discussion?
Okay. I'm not saying that he's not.
That's because that's a pro-NFL stance, right?
No, I'm not saying he's not in the discussion.
Now, did you see what McIntyre said? He said, well, the reason why J.J. Watt didn't win it is because that would be a pro-NFL stance to give a Citizen of the Year award to J.J. Watt. In other words, what McIntyre is stating is something that I've been stating for the longest time, is that the media has a war against the NFL because the NFL is not answerable to the liberal media. And this is why they're doing what they're doing. They're trying to make the NFL subservient to the whims of modern day liberalism, and the media is a tentacle of liberalism for the most part. The job of the media is to get people to think a certain way and operate on a certain level, think on a certain wavelength. And when they see something as powerful as the NFL that does not want to conform to that thought process, they have to try to chip away, because the NFL is run by an old guard of Caucasian patriarchy. This is why I say I have to really start to delve into Roger Goodell and just really try to establish or evaluate whether or not he is a plant, because it's pretty much been firmly established that he has liberal associations. Well, so we'll see. And also, let me also say this: I stated in a previous video in regards to the football player Seth Joyner, that many former football players speak out against the NFL because they're upset with the NFL, that they feel like they have been pretty much tossed aside after their careers, particularly players who played in the 80s, early 90s, and before. Now, Eric Davis is one of those guys who came in around that era. So it's very common for them to take anti-NFL stances because they don't like how they were treated in their careers. So on a subconscious level, they like the discordianism that Colin Kaepernick has brought in, because they feel like, they for lack of a better term, that they were shitted on.
That's not a great thing. I'm just saying, why does this have to be poo-pooed because he is speaking for a group of people that you don't have that sympathy for?
Not
everyone, well, hold on, but everyone feels horrific about what happened to the people in Houston because you can see it and you live it and you can smell it and taste it. You don't feel for these black and brown people that you don't see getting beaten up and things happening to them. You can feel
Yeah, well, you know what? So-called black people have to start feeling for each other. Okay? That's the real problem. And I don't know how many times I have to say this. The reason why so-called black people are always looking for the attention and the validation of other races, particularly the so-called white race, is because so-called black people have very little compassion for each other. They try to hide that fact with the fake pro-blackness. People have a lot of cultural issues, a lot of issues with ordinances or the lack thereof. There's no order. There is no code for conduct in the so-called black community. And people are scared to say that because they're scared that they're going to be painted as being a quote-unquote coon or not pro-black, whatever that means. Most so-called black people are woefully ignorant to their own history. And they really don't have any real sincere inclination to want to have any form of true empowerment, which entails not trying to cleave onto other races, but trying to distance yourself from them to establish what exactly the problems are within, amongst our own people. We have too many people talking who have no knowledge, have no real information, don't know what they're talking about. We have too many people trying to usurp authority, particularly the so-called black woman who has embraced liberalism to the highest degree. The so-called black man, for the most part, has decided that he's going to become subservient to the black woman because he feels like he has to go along to get along. All these are more important issues than trying to get attention from the Caucasian.
So it's different. No, that's what I'm saying. It's different. So it's not.
That hurricane didn't discriminate based on race.
Well, no, agreed. No, but I'm saying you can feel for that. It's tangible. It's not tangible when you don't live in that world.
But I would argue this, Eric. I agree with your point, but the message has been lost. Now this is about cult of personality. It's not.
Bingo. But that's what a pawn is used for. A pawn, or any form of proxy ruler, has to be charismatic so that they can engender the faith of the people, because it's easier to rule over one person, that proxy leader, than it is to rule over the masses. You know, when Alexander the Greek conquered all those territories, he would usually install a proxy leader from amongst those people, that he could control the proxy leader, and he would have to, then he would have less worries about uprisings and rebellions. We still see that today. If you guys remember when America first conquered Afghanistan, they installed a proxy leader named I believe, Hamid Karzai. All right. That is common protocol for imperialist regimes, to install a puppet leader. And that's what you have when you have a cult of personality on a lower degree, when you're dealing with celebrity, but it's still the same. To cultivate a certain level of trust amongst the masses, through a pawn.
It's not about police brutality. It's just about cap.
I mean, that's all it's been about from the very start.
You were the first one in 9 minutes to bring up police brutality. So if to be the citizen of the year, your message should be clear. Kaepernick's message was lost months ago. It's about Kaepernick. We're all arguing about... It's always about Kaepernick. Now, I think initially there was a moment in time when, for about 2 to 3 months, police brutality...
2 to 3 minutes.
But my point is, and J.J. Watt's interesting, but the message isn't lost on J.J. Watt. Today Bill Gates gave $100 million to Alzheimer's. Mm-hmm.
And that's a whole lot of nothing. $100 million to Bill Gates. That's like somebody with $1,000 in their pocket giving away $5. Okay? Bill Gates is a shill for eugenics / population control. Most of you brothers know that already. I'll probably be doing a video on him relatively soon. But that's a big smoke screen.
That message is never going to be lost. If you're Citizen of the Year and it's a muddled message a year later
with virtually no substance to it, it's all based off of social media and a Twitter feed and the convincing of a portion of a society. Police are out here randomly killing black people.
Well, look, they have to demonize the police because the police are set up to be the fall guy for some of the transformations that they want to make in this society. I believe I mentioned this before. They really want a global police because they want a global earth. They don't want police here and there under different jurisdictions. They want global police who operate according to a global code. But that's far down the line. Okay, a lot of the ideas that they have for how they want to progress society forward are all based on globalism. That's why you'll see people like Kaepernick and many of these other liberal movements, ideologies, they're always trying to promote globalism. Everybody holding hands and coming together. That's part of many of the sentiments that I was stating in regards to Martin Luther King. That's what he really was about. And now I had a few brothers come in the comments. Oh, well, you got to listen to Martin Luther King's later speeches. Bruh, I listened to all that man's speeches. Yes, I know about his last speeches. I've read his speeches. The only reason why the man started to rebel at the end was because he realized that what he was used for at the very end, and he realized that he was done for. Okay? When a sheep knows that it's about to get slaughtered, sometimes that's when it starts to make the most noise. Okay? Particularly the goat. Particularly the goat. The goat makes the most noise when it knows that it's about to get slaughtered, because it knows what it's been used for the longest time. So, no, I don't get caught up in the Martin Luther King philosophy just because he allegedly changed at the end. No, sir. I know what he was really about.
And it's just not true. And I don't care how many people are upset when you point out the facts, the data, but it's just not true. There's no substance to Colin Kaepernick and this entire thing. GQ isn't in this for substance. I agree with your point. They're speaking to half the country. I agree with your point. They want to trend over Twitter.
Well, yeah. I mean, GQ really, it's not even so much that they're speaking to half the country. Their job is to elicit a certain sentiment. Their job is to try to constantly attack the thought process of those who are not quote unquote liberal. That's their job. And Kaepernick is an important piece in promoting a lot of that propaganda. All right. So at the end of the day, as Whitlock has said so well, the whole police brutality ruse has been put forth to make so-called blacks think that there is a way to get the police to treat them better, as opposed to them becoming more self-defined and saying, you know what, let's get our own police force. But as I've already stated, the reason why so-called blacks do not want their own police force is because they do not trust the authority of black men. The black man has been demonized so much in the so-called black community, and due to the lack of culture and code, a lot of black men don't even trust other black men or themselves. They constantly have to try to lean on the Caucasian man to solve all their problems. This is why I noted when they showed the photo with Kaepernick, they had all the black men as far in the back of the photo as possible. Everybody in the forefront were children and women. Right? Hearkening unto Isaiah the 3rd chapter. Right? Children are their oppressors and women rule over them. Right? Now we know when it says children that that's speaking about certain other issues in regards to who is dominating so-called black men or so-called black people, but it's still pertinent. Our people are being dominated by women and children. The so-called black man has been marginalized for a very long time because that is what he has allowed. The treatment that you receive is based off of what you allow.
And this got him there.
And it also got us talking about it. And GQ's mostly for fashion models. And we just spent 9 minutes on GQ magazine. You're welcome.
All right, coming up.
But anyway, we'll see what happens with Kaepernick. We know that he's about to make some form of commentary or some form of statement because he has a book coming out. So I believe that this photo shoot is just the beginning of him coming out of his wormhole. I won't say rabbit hole because he's firmly stuck in there. I don't believe that he will ever be allowed to come out of that rabbit hole, not without losing his life anyway. But we'll see. Peace.